Welcome back to the Revenge Chronicles, the place where real stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and shocking revenge come to life. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you don't want to miss what happens next in today's story. Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is something I remember the first time my daughter brought him home. His smile was charming, that smooth, practiced kind of charm that wins over parents before they've even had a chance to blink. He had flowers in his hands, a respectful tone in his voice, and he called me ma'am with such politeness that I couldn't help but smile back. As a mother, you want to believe your daughter has chosen someone who will love her, protect her, and treat her with the same care you've given her all her life. And as a police officer, you think you can read people, you think you can see through masks. But I didn't. I missed every red flag, every subtle flicker of manipulation in his eyes, and that failure will haunt me for the rest of my life. The night everything changed, I wasn't on duty. It was one of those quiet evenings when I was home, trying to rest after a long shift. My daughter, Anna, had stopped by earlier to drop off some groceries for me, insisting I take a break and let her help out for once. She was glowing when she left, talking about how her husband, Jason, had finally gotten a promotion. I remember thinking, good. They're building their life together. She's happy. I was proud of her. She'd grown into such a kind, compassionate woman. But that happiness shattered in a single phone call. It was around 11:30 p.m. when my phone rang. Her voice on the other end was trembling, barely a whisper, yet heavy with pain. "Mom," she said, "can you come get me? Please." My heart dropped. There was something in her tone that I'd heard hundreds of times in domestic calls, but I never thought I'd hear it from my own daughter. When I arrived at her house, the front door was half open, and she was sitting on the stairs with her arms wrapped around herself. I saw it immediately. The bruise on her cheek, purple and swollen, a mark no mother should ever see on her child. I didn't need her to tell me what had happened. The silence between us was loud enough. I knelt in front of her, my hands shaking as I cupped her face gently. "Anna," I whispered, "did he do this?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her tears were confession enough. I felt my chest tighten with something I hadn't felt in years, rage. But beneath it, a colder feeling took root. Clarity. Training. The part of me that had handled hundreds of cases like this suddenly came alive. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was an officer. I brought her home with me that night, tucked her into bed, and sat beside her until she fell asleep. Every time she winced or turned in her sleep, my heart broke a little more. When I finally stood up and looked at her sleeping there, my baby girl who used to run into my arms after school, it hit me like a wave. I had failed her. All my years enforcing the law, protecting strangers, chasing criminals through alleys, and I hadn't protected the one person who mattered most. I walked to my closet, opened the door, and stared at my uniform hanging there. The badge glinted faintly in the dim light. It wasn't anger that made me reach for it, it was purpose. So that's the situation I was in. My daughter was hurt, my instincts as a mother and officer were colliding, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and think, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have gone after him as a mother or as a cop? Because those lines blur in ways you can't imagine when it's your own blood on the line. The next morning, I went through every procedural step as if I were handling any other domestic violence case. I photographed her injuries, documented her statement, and filed the report myself. I knew some might say I was too close to the case, that I shouldn't be involved personally, but I also knew the system, knew how cases like this could slip through cracks if not handled carefully. I wasn't about to let that happen. I contacted the department, made it official, and requested backup before heading to their home. I told my partner, Officer Ramirez, everything. "We're doing this by the book," I said, even as my hands clenched the steering wheel. "But if he tries anything at all, you follow my lead." When we arrived, Jason was in the driveway, leaning against his car like he didn't have a care in the world. He looked surprised but not scared, like he thought he could talk his way out of this. "Officer," he greeted casually, pretending not to notice my uniform. "What brings you here?" I kept my voice steady. "You know why I'm here, Jason. We have a report of domestic assault." His smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Oh, come on, Anna probably just got a little upset, you know how emotional she gets." That sentence, "you know how emotional she gets," was the last straw. I stepped forward, close enough to see the faint shadow of his knuckles, and I could feel my blood boiling. But I had to remember who I was. I wasn't just her mother anymore. I was an officer executing the law. "Turn around," I said firmly. "You're under arrest for domestic battery." He laughed, shaking his head. "You're serious? You can't arrest me. What, because your daughter cried to her mommy?" I nodded to Ramirez, who stepped forward and took his arm. Jason resisted, his arrogance collapsing into hostility. "Don't touch me," he barked, but Ramirez held firm. I read him his rights as he struggled, my voice calm, controlled. It wasn't until the cuffs clicked around his wrists that I let myself breathe. Justice wasn't complete yet, but this was the beginning. When we got to the station, I processed him myself. Every form, every signature, every piece of documentation was handled precisely by the book. I wanted there to be no cracks he could slip through, no loopholes for his lawyer to exploit. I knew men like him. Charming, manipulative, practiced in twisting the truth until they looked like the victim. But not this time. My daughter's bruises spoke louder than any excuse. The court case was hard on Anna. She had to relive everything on the stand, every insult, every threat, every blow. There were moments I wanted to stand up and scream at the defense attorney for how he tried to twist her words, to make it seem like she had provoked him. But I didn't. I sat there, uniformed and silent, a reminder that justice wasn't an abstract thing, it was standing right there in that room, watching. When the verdict came in, guilty of domestic assault, Anna broke down in tears and I finally let myself cry too. Afterward, she hugged me and said something I'll never forget. "Mom, you didn't just save me. You showed me I deserved to be saved." That hit me harder than anything else. Because the truth is, when you're a cop, you see so many victims who think they deserve their pain. They stay quiet because they believe love means endurance. But love isn't supposed to leave bruises. It isn't supposed to make you feel small. Jason was sentenced to 18 months in prison, with mandatory counseling and a restraining order. It wasn't as long as I wished, but it was justice, lawful, solid, unshakable. And more importantly, it was a message. No one, no matter how charming, no matter how smart, gets to hurt my daughter and walk away like it never happened. In the months that followed, Anna began to heal. She started therapy, reconnected with her friends, and even went back to school for her degree. I watched her rediscover herself piece by piece, and I realized something profound. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about reclaiming power, dignity, and peace. My uniform gave me the means to enforce the law, but my heart, my role as a mother, gave me the reason. Sometimes, late at night, I still see that bruise when I close my eyes. It reminds me of the line we walk as officers, between duty and emotion, justice and vengeance. That night, I could have easily gone too far. I could have let my anger dictate my actions. But if I had, I would have lost not only my badge, but also the part of me that believes in what's right. My daughter needed a mother, yes, but she also needed a protector who believed in the law. So, if you're watching this and you've ever been in a position where someone you love was hurt, ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you have sought revenge, or would you have sought justice? Because sometimes the hardest thing isn't fighting back, it's holding yourself back. If you are on my side, if you believe no one should ever be above the law, then like this video, subscribe to the Revenge Chronicles, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, was I right to put on my uniform that night? Or would you have handled it differently? Thanks for listening. I'm Officer Marlene, and this was my story. I'll see you all in the next episode of the Revenge Chronicles.